as I'm sure you can tell, I have ADHD, so I'm like all over the place, and I don't fit into the normal boxes that people that are very successful in the corporate world do. I struggled because I didn't have the processes in place where I was just like chasing this person, and I forget about something, but I need to chase that, I need to chase that. So I've just always relied on systems and processes. The number one downfall of salespeople is they don't ask for the sale. They'll say, great, you love this office, you're happy with the pricing, okay, great. And they'll say, okay, I'll follow up. And I say, no. If they're happy with it, just say, great, I can get a contract out. Should we get a contract and review it? WeWork just came and put our entire sector on the map. Everyone that's followed since has followed in the shadow of WeWork. They said, actually, the old, stale, boring way of working is no longer applicable. We're going to do something more edgy and trendy and cool. And if there's any value to our business, it's the brand. The amount of people I speak to where they're like, I work in a co-space near me. I'm like, you don't, but I love the fact that you think that because now co-space is on your head. And we basically said, right, we need a list of 100 locations that we are going to hit, filtered by the top 30 locations. And here's the criteria. And he went away, and a week later he came back with a list. And there was 30 locations. 29 had David Lloyd Jones, and 1 didn't, which is St. Albans.
Brilliant.
And I just went, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? Someone else has already done all this. David Lloyd know exactly who they go after, know exactly what their price point is, know exactly who their market is. It's the same market as us. Why am I reinventing the wheel?
Will, welcome to the pod, my friend.
Do that again. Sorry, I was adjusting myself. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good, man. Welcome to SQFT-Stories, Will.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, loads of topics I want to dive into today. I'm sure this is going to be a good one. I can already tell just by the pre-chat. But let's have a little start back when let's have a look at your business career actually to start with. So like, give us an idea of what you were like right at the very start, because I know you've had a few ventures as we've already discussed, off mic as such. So give us an idea about the start of your business ventures.
Yeah, I had a journey in, out, and then back into entrepreneurship, or if you class it as that.
Yeah.
I tend to generally hate that word, but that's how it's generalized. So way back, and very few people know this, but more and more people starting to know this, and will know this off this now. I wanted to be an actor. It was my whole thing. I used to do performing arts. I wanted to be an actor. And I wanted to be an actor because I thought that people like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Get
Just mash two people together.
Yeah, just mash it there. We're like traveling all over the world. I was like, that's what I want. And then you realise it's like a hangar in North London somewhere. But my family are all engineers. So it was a very, very quick conversation with a family member that said, no, you're going to be an engineer. And I went down the engineering route. And I was very fortunate. My mum always taught me that work ethic was more important than anything else. So if you are doing anything, you don't have, you've got free time, fill that free time with something. So I was quite fortunate when all of my friends were doing work experience, like most people go to like corner shops and stuff. I went to the only engineering firm where we grew up and was like, look, I walked in, there was this kind of older guy in the reception area. And I said, look, I want to do work experience. This is what I want to do. I want to be an engineer. Didn't know that he was the guy that owned the business. So super interesting, super cool guy. And he said, look, come back Monday, do 2 weeks with us. So I did 2 weeks. When I had nothing to do, I literally picked up a sweeping brush and was just like sweeping the floors. I just made myself look really busy. And at the end of it, they gave me like 400 quid in an envelope. And I was like a council estate kid. So I'd seen like 10 quid, but not 400. So I was like, oh my God, like if I work hard, I can make money. And then when I went to college to study engineering, I had this idea with one of the guys I went to college with, which was, let's create like an online store. What was effectively dropshipping version 1 before dropshipping was a thing. And we were buying electrical goods from China and trying to sell them in the UK. And we had like 9 months of building it and launching it. And it went horribly wrong because we had no idea about incorporation and anything about what we were doing.
And how old were you then?
I was 17 when we started it, and I was 18 when we finished it.
Short venture then?
Short venture, yeah. And that kind of made me think, okay, I'm probably not cut out to be an entrepreneur, which was the most stupidest thing to think, because that's actually one of the lessons that you should learn as an entrepreneur, which is that, it went wrong. And so I went down the engineering route. I worked in oil and gas. I always worked onshore, not offshore, but very quickly moved into design. So, and it leads into the kind of what we do now. But I started as a CAD designer. So I did CAD design part-time around my college course. And I got into the CAD design side and then into the project engineering and project management side. And so I was like really interested in pursuing that, but I kind of fell out of love with engineering, and I'd kind of seen that there was a career path, but as I'm sure you can tell, I have ADHD, so I'm like all over the place, and I don't fit into the normal boxes that people that are very successful in the corporate world do.
Yeah.
I like to do things myself. So I'd already kind of like fell out of love with the engineering side, and I'd happened to get involved into a development business, which was my first foray into real estate. So it was commercial to resi,
Okay.
buying apartment blocks. Got involved in that business through a family member of mine who said, look, why don't you come and join us? Ended up joining the business in 2015. I exited in 2019, but we had this amazing like 4-year journey, which was kind of the stepping stones of getting into that business.
So what did you do in that business?
So two things.
Yeah.
Number one was working closely with the guys that were acquiring the site. So what does it look like? What are we trying to build out? Liaising with the architects. What's that scheme look like? And then number two was primarily project managing the scheme. So delivering the scheme alongside some of the other guys to say, right, we're happy. We're walking around with a contractor. They're doing what they do. We're happy with the valuations. We were just always a developer. We were never a contractor. But going back slightly, when I left oil and gas, I did a year working for a guy called Nick who had a composites business. And I learned more in that year than I learned anywhere else.
Why?
The guy, Nick, he had started there at 15 and he'd worked there all his life. And the guy who owned the business had literally shut it down because he'd retired. And so Nick bought all the equipment and started the business from scratch again. And was like, I'll just buy all the equipment and I'll just start this business. And he was the kind of guy that if you were working 70 hours a week, he'd work 80. He was the first one there, last one out. He wasn't your typical boss of your like flash Range Rover, 9 to 5, and you guys do all the work. And so he was probably one of the best people I ever worked for. And a lot of how I am today is from stuff that I learned from him, which is awesome. And then so did the resi thing, did a scheme in Hull where we brought this amazing 3 buildings side by side. And it was like a 5-story grade 2 listed building. And we turned it from these stunning high offices with this brilliant architrave around the top into these small apartments. And there's a societal need for people to get on the housing ladder because they can't afford these bigger apartments. So smaller apartments filled that gap.
Yep.
But I kind of fell out of love with it, and I'd seen certain things that were happening kind of economically and gone, actually, I don't like this model. And I thought this would be amazing as an office building. Like if we kept it and kept all these features and created this amazing office space. And then I started looking at like the rates and the returns, and I was like, oh, there's actually a business model here. And so that's what led me into what we do now.
Yeah. So let's touch back on project managing now.
Yep.
How did you find project managing? Because it's very difficult project managing. I managed some projects for us as well, and I always find it I find it a very difficult skill set to master project managing. Just because I'm similar to you, I'm like quite ADHD and can be a little bit scatty, and I feel like PMing and those personality traits are it's quite a difficult combination. So how did you find it?
I always say to people, project management is the wrong title. You're not a project manager, you're a change manager. Because the only thing you can guarantee in project management is that there'll be change.
True.
So I always say to people, if you embrace the fact that there's change and you understand that, and it's exactly how we are in our lives, right? The journey is not, you don't want it to be straight.
It's not linear, is it? Yeah.
It's be this winding thing. So I always said, like, I'm quite methodical in the way I do things. So, and I have to be because of the way my brain is. So like I time block things. I have everything on an Excel sheet that I like. So back then, especially, where I'd be like, these are the tasks I need to outline. This is what who I'm waiting on. This is the time when I'm going to chase that person and get that information. So I almost gamified it where I was like, I'm just in the driving seat of all this stuff that is doing everything that I need. I'm not thinking about it because it's all there. Set it out from day one and it's easy. So I always found it to be easier when I started to do that. When I first moved into project engineering, which was that's like the bridge between design and the project management, I struggled because I didn't have the processes in place where I was just like chasing this person and I forget about something, but I need to chase that, I need to chase that. So I've just always relied on systems and processes, and that forms a lot of what we do today.
It just makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
100%.
Because you're right, because before when I was starting out as such, I was the same. I didn't have the systems and processes. So I was like, I used to write down, I used to just physically, like, and I do now, to be fair, to an extent, write down a to-do list for little bits and bobs. But back then I was like, I'd write down the to-do list and then I'd think of someone else, I've got to do that actually. Oh, I'll quickly do that. And then I'd be like, oh, actually, that's reminded me, I need to chase that guy. So I chase that guy. And then I just think this is such an unsustainable model of like change management, like you call it, or project management or whatever it is.
A guy, so just going back to that, so I should jump in. A guy that I was working with on site, he said to me that there's like a link between your brain and getting things out. And he said, you can think about things, but if you just write it down, your brain has this ability to just let go of it. So, and he gave me this idea, and I used to do this all the time. I'd go to bed with a notebook, and I'd wake up.
This before.
Yeah, I'd wake up at like 2 a.m. and be like, oh my God, I need to do that, I need to do that. I'd literally scribble it down, and it's like it's gone, and you just let go. And it's the same with like creating lists of things that you want to achieve. So like when I was, if I was in a meeting and I was like, right, I need to do this, and this, and I'd come out and be like, okay, these are the things I need to do. I just write it down, and then I'd have it, and I wouldn't have to think about it, and I could just go, right, I'm going to follow up at this point. So I'll stick it in the diary. In a week's time, I'm going to follow up if that information isn't in. If it's in, I'll action it. If it isn't, then I'll chase it and flag it for 2 more days or whatever. So I think understanding how the key thing is understanding how you work and what works best for you. And for me, it's literally just time blocking everything. Whatever's in my calendar, just do that. Whether I want to do it or whether I don't, I just stick to my calendar.
Because I've been working with a coach for the last year, I'd say. It's actually someone who came on the podcast right at the very start, and that's what he's changed about the way I work is to actually. He does it to like the nth degree, like time blocking. Like he's different level, but he just says your working day, just time block it out and just stick to it. And then once you can do that, you'll be able to build a bit of a foundation, like a working foundation to go from there. I'm the same, like in terms of that. I need to have it time locked in, and then I can. Otherwise, I'm like fighting fires all the time. So I'm doing.
Well, yeah, and like things happen, right? So I always say to people, I'm not like the best at the time blocking, right? So I'll get it 80% right. And that's the metric that I aim for, is my 80%. So if I can get 80% of my day or my week or my month time blocked in and I stick to it, great. But you still have to allow for things that can drop in, right? A call that you need to be on drops in the diary. If you don't have that buffer, then that messes up your day and you typically get thrown off by that whole thing. It comes back to that change management piece. You've got to be able to change and adapt to what's happening around you. But I try and stick to it at least 80% of the time.
You're right. Otherwise, if you do try to stick 100, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Never going to be able to do it perfectly 100%.
And you don't know if you're doing the right thing, right? I mean, some of it is time blocked, but it's stuff that's quite fluid. Otherwise, you just have this mundane thing that you're doing. I always use this analogy, which is, and I saw this so much in engineering. I'd meet guys who had been doing the job for 20 years, and I'd meet guys who'd been doing it 5 years. And there's a very fine line between having 20 years of experience and having a year's experience 20 times over. There's such a fine line.
Explain that.
So you can meet people that have done the same thing day in, day out for 20 years, and they think they have 20 years of experience, but they've actually got a year's worth of experience that they've just repeated 20 times. And you can meet people that have done something for 5 years, but they've just done such a variety of stuff. They understand everything at a harmonious level that they're actually way more experienced than the guy who's got 4 times more experience than him.
That's
they have
such an interesting perspective. I've never really thought about that before.
It comes back to business as well, so you're going to love this.
Go on.
So, and I'm a big fan of quotes. There's another quote, and I'm very conscious of the fact that like 80% of quotes are made up, including this one. But there's one that I saw, and I hope it's true. And it says, if you read 3 in-depth books on one particular topic, you know more than 95% of the population. And when I came into business, I was like, okay, I'm really good, because I always say like business is like a jigsaw. So I do one piece of the jigsaw, which is 5%, and I have all these other 5%, and together we all create the jigsaw. But what I learned going down the process, and it took me 3 years to learn this, is that's great that I don't do any of this stuff, but I still have to have an understanding about it. Otherwise, I can't have a conversation about it. So I was like, great, I'll go read my 3 books on marketing, 3 on sales, and 3 on finance, and start to get a view of all these other bits that I don't really touch, but can I understand it enough to have a conversation? So
that's such an interesting concept. What some of those books that you read?
I read The Immutable Laws of Marketing, which a friend of mine recommended. In terms of sales, I just went full into Grant Cardone.
Oh, 10X, man. Yeah. He's under investigation, I think.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure he's...
I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
I to be fair, I read his 10X rule, maybe.
Yeah, 10X rule, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's under investigation at the moment, because I listened to...
For his capital. I saw something about his capital business.
Yeah, I listened to a clip from Gary Brecker, who's on the Patrick Bet David podcast, about how, because Gary Brecker had 10X Health. So like, I think Grant Cardone, I might butcher this, and I'm sorry if anyone listening who's going to correct me, but I'm pretty sure Grant Cardone invested in 10X, in what was Gary Brecker's health brand business, and he tried to 10X it as such. But I think the way that he did it, kind of tried to push Gary Brecker out and didn't give him the equity and the money that he...
I've seen something about that. I didn't see if it went anywhere, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure Gary Brecker's taken him to court, and I think it's created a bit of a domino effect where other people have like, oh, do you know what, that happened to me as well? And I'm pretty sure he's under investigation at the moment, Grant Cardone, and it does not surprise me. I got really obsessed. I seem to get obsessed with like people. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but like...
You're like me. I'm the same. I just go so deep.
Yeah. And then I just start watching all that, and I sit on YouTube flicking through and watching all their videos, and like Grant Cardone interviews, looking at all of them, Grant Cardone speeches.
So here's a question for you. Do you have YouTube Premium?
No.
Okay, so I'm a YouTube guy.
Yeah.
So when I'm working,
Yeah.
I put on, like, I love jazz music. I'm massively into jazz, and
Yeah.
I put on jazz playlists in the background.
Cool.
It drives me insane with the adverts,
Oh,
and it kept saying 2-month trial, 2-month
yeah.
trial. So I was like, okay, I'll just give it a 2-month trial, see what it's like.
Yeah.
I am hooked. Honestly, it's like the first time you drank coffee and now you can't put it down.
What?
I just could not go back to watching anything with ads. My brain is like, I
Really?
just love not. Yeah, I'm like, I'm paying $12.99 a month for the rest of my life because I'm never leaving YouTube Premium.
I haven't got a premium, but I tell you what,
You gotta do it.
the ads, and I tell you what, so might be a bit of jazz in there, but I usually listen to some form of like chilled lo-fi,
Yeah.
or just
That's me. Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
And in the office, I'll put it on. Oh, bang my mic. But in the office, I'll put it on, and then like I'll realise that 10 minutes later, I haven't even been listening to him for 5 minutes because the ads come on and it's still on the next. It's still on the click next.
Yeah, because it doesn't go through. It
Doesn't
used to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it just skip it.
Yeah.
And then that would be it. But you skip the first one, and then there's a second ad. And if you don't skip that one, it goes into like a 3-minute ad.
I feel like I need to get premium now.
Honestly, it's a game changer.
I feel like I'm sold. But anyway, going back to the Grant Cardone thing, I brought into him massively his 10x rule, and then I just felt like he was a bit too much for me. So
He's too. So I went big on it, and I'm like quite good at recognizing people, and I don't buy into it in the same way. But we as a company, I was like, right, everybody's going to do the sales training, and some people loved it, others hated it. Right, it's just the American culture. But what I think is, and I always say this, is people have things of value, and regardless of anything else that's going on in the background, there are things that you can learn. And I think one of the key things that I learned, and I always relay this to our sales team. So I'm on the sales calls every week, and I always relay this, which is the number one downfall of salespeople is they don't ask for the sale. They'll say, "Great, you love this office. You know, you happy with the pricing? Okay, great." And they'll say, "Okay, I'll follow up." And I say, "No. If they're happy with it and happy with the pricing, just say, great, I can get a contract out. Should we get a contract and review it? Or I'll go get it printed and let's have a look at it."
Interesting.
Job done. Like it's so many people don't ask for the sale. There's almost this like, I don't want to ask the person. I want to be friends.
Yeah.
But it's also this culture in the UK where people won't say they don't want to do business with people. They'll be like, "Oh, let's jump on a call. Let's review it." And it's like, no, this doesn't work for us. We're not going to do it. And people have a problem saying that. So
and they do, don't they?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I had a
you probably have it tendering for jobs, right?
Yeah, literally all the time. And I've actually also been on the flip side of it as well. You know, when you get people who cold call you, and then they get you, somehow they call you and you're on the phone to them, and like you find it really difficult to just say no, and they're trying to sell you something, and you're like, "Oh, right, okay," and like subconsciously, probably consciously as well, I know that I'm not buying the product that they're trying to sell me, but I'll be like, "Oh, right, okay, yeah, go on then, tell me," and I can't physically just say, "Nah, I don't want it."
I had the best one. You're gonna laugh at this, right? So in when will it be? 2016, 2017, as like a bit of a side project with one of the other founders of the previous business I was involved in, Sons, we went and built a portfolio of properties. So I'm from Grimsby, but I'm not from Grimsby actually. Cut that out. I'm not from Grimsby. I'm from Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I'm from Lincolnshire, but I went to college in Grimsby.
Yeah.
And I had friends who had gone to college in Grimsby and had nowhere to live. And like everybody knows Grimsby for what they know it for, right? It's got Grim in its name, but actually it's an all right place.
Yeah.
I'm not ambitious to go live back there, no offense to anyone in Grimsby, but like it's not a bad place. But everyone had just said, okay, there's this perception, we'll just build this subpar housing. And so I looked at it and was like, actually, there's a huge opportunity here where if we create a premium product or a more premium product, which is kind of the ethos in what we do in CoSpace as well, actually we can get decent rates, decent returns on these room rates and let out to a professional market whilst everyone's doing it to kind of blue collar workers. And so we hit upon this like really good opportunity where we started buying our first set of properties and then, you know, developing it out, doing what we did, and it did really, really well. And then I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
What do you mean what were we talking about? It's what you were talking about. You were saying about how you were developing properties in Grimsby, but it was more you didn't want to sell it to
what was saying before that?
Blue collar workers.
I went down that route.
So you were talking about how we were how you guys learned sales from a sales course, and I said we were talking about how in the UK it's really difficult to say no to people who are trying to sell you something.
Yeah, fuck. I had like a thing and I've lost it. This is my daily life.
It'll come back. We'll come back.
Yeah, it's my daily life.
Tell us a little bit about so you mentioned how you did commercial to resi, or was it resi to commercial?
Commercial to resi.
Commercial was a resi.
Yeah.
And you did that for 4 years, was it? 4 or 5 years?
Just over. Yeah,
just
over.
over.
I got into it prior to that, and then ended up saying, okay, I'll come into this bigger business and do it.
And you mentioned that you did a development whereby you kind of cut and carved up a really nice historic building into flats because there was a demand for it, and you thought, do you know what, this would be really good for an office space. So was that the start of, is it Co-Space?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So was that the start of Co-Space then, or was there a period between that?
I think that was the seed.
Okay.
I think that was the seed. If I look back subconsciously, that was the seed. What was the start of it was I had a mentor who was in London, and I was commuting down to London, once a month and meeting him. And the meeting we had was at a WeWork. I'll say that word. Was at a WeWork in London. And I walked in thinking it was this like really edgy, cool cafe. And it's way before they had like turnstiles because people just wandered in. And I literally like walked to this machine, made a coffee, sat down, and was just like, this is a really cool space. I ended up joining that space for 6 months and working from there. And I was like, this is amazing, but there's nothing like this in Lincoln. So I was like, okay, let's actually go and create like a test space. So I rented out a first floor office in central Lincoln, carved it all up, put in a load of desks, rented them out to loads of people that I knew, and made some decent money off it.
Yeah.
And that's what led into it. But it wasn't until I met my business partner, Ali, and we just literally met for 30 minutes over coffee and ended up chatting for 3 hours. It's an insane like origin story. But I literally was like, okay, there's actually a business model here. There's something that we can go and create. So the seeds were kind of already there, but there was just so many contributing factors that then led to it going into what it did.
Why do you think I know we touched off camera on this as well, but why do you think WeWork was so successful for a period of time? Because at one period of time, they were the only co-working space that I'd heard of.
Well, what else is there? Regis. And people, and let me just clarify this statement. So Regis has a bad name in the UK only. When I'm in America, and my best friend lives in America, so I spend quite a bit of time out there, everyone is so proud to be a member of Regis. And it's kind of the same in Europe. It's just in the UK they have this bad reputation. And I don't know why, but WeWork just came and put our entire sector on the map. Everyone that's followed since has followed in the shadow of WeWork.
Yeah.
And they put the sector on the map. They said, actually, the old, stale, boring way of working is no longer applicable. We're going to do something more edgy and trendy and cool. So as an idea, the whole concept is phenomenal. It's just how it was ran that was the problem.
Yeah. I mean, like, talking of another people that I got obsessed with him as well. In fact, the reason why I got obsessed with Adam Neumann was because obviously we're in Fit Out, and it was interesting to see how the spaces were fit out. But also, I got really obsessed with him. I don't know why, but because of the podcast, I really respected the art of his communication skills. And I thought, do you know what? I think I can learn something from the way he communicates with people to bring to the podcast. So again, like I was doing with Grant Cardone, I used to just go on, even when I was driving, I used to just click on like Adam Neumann interviews, and I used to listen to the way that he used to communicate his viewpoint. And not only that as well, it was the way that he used to like sell this non-existent company that he had. It was an existing company, obviously, but this like
it's more the idea though. He sold the idea more than the actual business,
and the culture as well behind it. Like to the point where, like, I think I was talking to you off. Like, if I was looking for a co-working space, I would have had to listen to him 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm joining WeWork. It's a no-brainer. Of course, I'm going to join.
It was a movement in a way, right? It was, and people compare it to a cult, which is exactly what a cult is, right? It's people following one person, but he just had this way of articulating it. And I know we spoke about this before, but me and Ali, my business partner, we just have we can't articulate in that same way. In fact, Ali is better at it than I am, but we can't articulate in that same way. He's a finance guy, I'm a real estate guy. We just get on and do things. I can't give you the wishy-washy story, which is a strength, but also a weakness.
Yeah.
And he just had a way of articulating, getting people to buy into him and his vision. And I think when you take, because you can look at it and go, okay, well, he had delusions of grandeur or whatever, but actually he had people that enabled him, like Mashioshi's son, who gave him a huge amount of money and said, go and be more crazy. Like, if somebody's on the edge and you do that, they're going over.
Yeah, it's true. And he said, the most recent one I listened to, I think, and I don't want to butcher this again, but when they got valued at 47 billion, I think it was, that he got asked, like, what, like, it was that valuation was so extreme. Like, why did you actually believe it? And he actually said in the interview, so many high level people in corporate who were backing us told me that that's what it was worth. And if you have so many people operating at that level telling you that that's what the business is worth, and I believed it as well. So he was like, I genuinely believed it because there were all these people around me telling me that that's what it was worth.
So that's a really interesting point, and it's a bit of a segue. No one really knows how to value what we do as a business, right? Everyone looks at it and goes, well, you have to look at the real estate, you have to look at the operations. No one really knows. And if you look at the the only transaction, there's a couple out there that have sold, and what's his name? The one that sold to be Headspace, I think it was called. Johnny Rosenblatt, who now owns,
Okay.
and I just butchered his last name most likely, who now owns Spacemate. But
Oh yeah.
there was no real transaction prior to that other than TOG.
Yep.
TOG was the only transaction in the Blackstone transaction, which was valued at, and I don't want to butcher it, but based on the information that we've seen, 10 times revenue.
Yep.
So it was on that revenue valuation. And if someone came along to me today and offered me 10 times my revenue for our business, we'd be having serious board calls saying, this is attractive, what should we do?
Yeah.
Because it was such a different way, and there was no transaction in the marketplace before that had ever set a precedent. And then everyone went, hang on, maybe that's slightly overvalued. Actually, how do we value these things? Maybe it's an EBITDA calculation, which is now how real estate is getting valued in terms of operational real estate. So it moved from that revenue model like he was working on, which was the tech thing, to actually, these are stupid valuations. It's more about EBITDA.
What makes it even more stupid, and this is literally like basics, is that they never turn a profit.
Yeah. Well, he did in like his first year back in 2012 or whatever it was.
Yeah, of course.
Like
But
100 grand or something. 47
billion pounds worth of business, and you've profited in your whole life 100 grand. Not you, by the way, but
it's a bit, yeah. I wish. It's a bit. I mean, I always think there's people. Everyone has like their top 5 people that they'd have dinner with, right? And I think it would be amazing to have dinner with him.
Yeah, without that. In fact, he's probably in my top 5.
I don't know who's your number one.
Oh, so
I'll tell you mine, and if you know him, you'll know him.
I tell you what, I don't know. I can't put it down to a number one, but I tell you who would be in the mix. Marcus Aurelius would be in the mix if he was still around, of course.
Yeah. Well, it can be anyone, living or dead. It's like
he would be in the mix without doubt. Okay. It would be Adam Neumann only recently because I've been sort of buying into him as a person and whatnot. I'm on the spot. I can't really think, to be honest with you. But those two, as we're talking about them, without doubt. Give me some, and I'll probably start thinking about.
Okay, my number one, which everyone thinks is slightly rogue, Anthony Bourdain.
Why?
Hands down. I just feel like I don't know if you know his story.
Not massively, no.
So, chef in New York. Average kind of guy, just worked his career, decided to write a book one day, book went mental, blew up completely. For anyone that knows the story, he ended up committing suicide, which is a sad thing and a real shame. But he just has the most experience in terms of exploring different cultures. And if you take away that last bit of his life and look at his whole life, he lived almost his entire life in this tiny span at this stage of it, rather than at the start of it up until he was like 40 or whatever. And I feel like you could sit with him and just absorb the stories that he's got around him. Similar to, and he's not in my list, but similar to someone like Jeremy Clarkson, who you look at and go, he's lived a life. Yeah. Like, he's done it. But yeah, for me, Anthony Bourdain, top of the table.
I think one of mine, and I don't know if you like football or anything, but I'm a big football fan. One of mine would probably be Jurgen Klopp, who's a football manager. Okay. But I'm also biased, I'm a Liverpool fan, but also like what the type of person he is and how he's cultivated a culture within a team. He's led a team, but also he's created this business, which is a football, because football clubs are businesses. He's taken this business, and he is the manager as such, and he's cultivated a culture within it that are like just a team of winners, and they're all heading towards one direction, and that he's leading the pack as such. And if there's no bystanders, if you're not buying into this vision, then if you're not working hard, you've got to leave. If you're not that, but you haven't got to be the most talented, but if you've got work ethic, and you're hard working, and you want to see the vision, then come on board with it. Yeah. So he fascinated me, but I'm a slightly biased because I'm a Liverpool football fan, so he was the manager.
I'm not a football guy in the slightest. I'm an F1 guy.
Okay.
But what I think that speaks to is when you're around winners, you get dragged up. You know, there's that famous quote of, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You want to be around people that drag you up. And there's always a difficulty, right, when you get into this, because you want to be around those people that are up there, but you're not at that level yet. Alex Hormozy has this really good quote where it's like, you're not ready for that circle. You're not quite there, but you want to be in that circle. And it's all about being around that winning mentality, and you just get dragged up to that level. Yeah, I mean,
to be honest with you, I think I said this in the last episode when I recorded with Ben, is that's a premise of why I started this podcast, because of trying to be around people that I wouldn't be able to be around in any other time. Like, to be able to get, for instance, 2 hours of your time, you're booked out, like you're busy. It'd be a nightmare if someone like me on LinkedIn messaged you and like, mate, can I have 2 hours of your time? You'd be like,
you did it a few times.
I did it a couple of times. I wasn't going to say that, but I did message Will a couple of times.
If you're showing me, it's all good.
But to be able to get around people in commercial real estate as a whole, looking at it holistically, but we're in fit out and small D&B, to be able to get around bigger players in our industry to just try and feed off their energy. That's the premise of why I actually started this, to be honest with you, to get them in my network book. And then you never know what could happen, and just feed off the energy and creating and nurturing relationships I love doing it.
You always hear this famous quote, which is, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I genuinely believe that. I've always believed that. Like, I look at the people I have in my phone book, and I know almost any problem that I've got going on in my life, I can call someone in there, and so someone in there would be able to give me advice. And there's another good quote, you can tell I really like quotes. And this quote is from, if you ever watch House of Cards?
No.
Oh, mate, amazing TV show. And there's this good quote where he says, instead of asking for like someone's advice, or like asking somebody for help, ask them for their advice. Ask them what they would do in this situation, and they almost freely just give you the answer anyway. So it's all about, like, okay, ask the right question in the right
Do you
way.
think that's because not everyone loves to give advice, but everyone loves to offload their opinion and what they think of a situation?
I almost feel like they're valued and that they bring value to the table. It's the same in everything. It's the same in everything.
Interesting. Give us a little bit of a backstory. Well, you've given us a little backstory, but the idea of your guys' business that you do now.
Yep.
So obviously you said that you met your business partner. Was it at WeWork you met him?
No. So we actually connected on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And this was back before the
5 times.
This was back before the inbox was full. This was back when no one was messaging me. So I mean, we connected. We said we'd grab a coffee. I said, look, I live in Lincoln. At the time, I was commuting down to Lincoln one day a month. And I said, look, I'm in the city these dates. Do any of these work? I said, great. This day works. Let's do 1 o'clock at the Waterstones in Oxford Circus. And I went to Piccadilly Circus. So I'm there, like, if you know those two, they're totally vastly different. One of them's 5 stories with like a really nice restaurant, which is the one I was at.
Yeah.
And the other one is 2 stories with a Costa coffee. And I'm like, where were you? Like, I'm stood by the lifts. He's like, there's not a lift in here. What are you on about? And then realised that I'm at the wrong one. And I said, look, should we just cancel this and I'll, let you know when I'm next down? Because we'd only got half an hour in the diary. And he said, no, jump on the tube. You'll be 10 minutes. We'll have, 15, 20 minutes and then we'll call it a day. So I said, okay, cool. Went round on the tube, met him. He was he's a finance guy. He's a corporate finance guy. He had sold a business in 2015 and he got heavily into M&A. And I think he wanted to get into real estate, or I got the sense he was wanting to get more knowledgeable on real estate. And I was really interested in him for a polar opposite reason. I was living in Lincoln. I already knew I wanted to move down to London. I was just trying to get around people who were living the life I wanted to live. And I just thought, if I get around those people, I'll live that life. And so I had that was kind of like my agenda for it. And we ended up speaking for like literally 2.5, 3 hours, and we both missed meetings. And the thing that we both realised was he's from Sheffield. So he's from Sheffield, went to school in Wakefield. And we both realised that there was this opportunity in regional workspace. Because he was living in London, working in London. Every time I'd meet clients out of London, it was a Regis. Yeah. Every time. I had absolutely nothing. I've got this little test site that I'd done quite well out of in Lincoln. But no ambition to really go beyond what it was, or no vision of how to do it. And so we literally just were chatting and speaking about flex workspace and this whole model and asset backing it and how the finances work and things for hours. And eventually we just kind of stayed in touch. And I think because he was a finance guy, and I don't know this, I've never actually sat down with him and asked him, but I get the sense that he, from a finance perspective, wanted to help us raise money. So I'll help you raise money. I'll take a bit of, equity in the business and grow the business or whatever. But what we very quickly realised was we both had really good skill sets to go and do this. And so after about 9 months, we both just looked at each other and said, we should go do this business. And I always tell people this story. There was a third co-founder in CoSpace way before we incorporated. And the guy who was a co-founder or was kind of in the pre was very open, was like, look, I'm not going to get involved in this. I've got clashes of interest and, a really good job. And he's a really cool guy. And so he said, I'm going to step back. But he worked at the time at CoStar. So we wrote our business plan in the boardroom at CoStar in the Shard, which is a crazy origin story. And so, and we literally, it was in that boardroom that me and Ali looked at each other and said, let's do it. And the next day we incorporated.
Did you?
Which was like July 2018.
So what was obviously the plan was to do co-spaces, but like what was the vision then at that point? Was it to take over?
It was a 5,000 square foot space in the centre of Doncaster. That was the first site that we found.
Yeah.
And the first site we engaged on. And alongside that, we found another site which was 7,500 square foot in Leicester.
Yep.
And then amongst doing those 2 deals, we met with Will Kinnear and Douglas Green they were called GKRE. They've now split, and Will is Hune and Doug is G8. If you know Will, he's a really good agent in the sector. And I got connected to Will because Will's an ex-Lincoln lad. So we met with him and he was like, look, these small sites don't work. You need this size, this size. And so we kind of like fobbed it off a bit at first and we're like, okay, well, this is the model that we're doing. That's what everyone else is doing. So we're going to do something different. And we quickly realized that actually the bigger sites were just so much better at a sweet spot, right? 15 to 30,000 square foot. That's what we aim for. I know I can fill that. Anything above, I see as risk. I'm not going to go sign 60,000 square foot.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like stepped back and went, actually, these bigger sites make sense. But we'd already been engaged on Doncaster and Leicester. Now, Leicester thankfully fell out of bed because the landlord had problems with the building and it wasn't going to work. And Doncaster fell out of bed for another reason. So both those things lined up and it ended up not doing those 2 deals. But the first deal we ended up doing was a deal in Reading. And I had been asked to go and look at this building like 5 times. And I was like, I'm not driving down to Reading. It's 4.5 hours. Like, I've never been to Reading in my life. No. And Will convinced me. He literally said, I'll cover your costs. Just come see the building. I drove down, saw Reading, and the next day we agreed to deal.
Oh, really?
The next day.
And so
And that was our site number 1.
Did you see that as risk because it was 4.5 hours away? Well, how do you mitigate the risk?
I never saw that. No, weirdly, no. No, I didn't see that as risk actually.
No.
But I've spent my entire life doing development on the road. Or my entire life doing the developments was on the road. So I was, on the road from 2015 through to 2019, 3 days a week out of the office, literally driving to site, 1 in Crewe, 1 down in Essex, 1 in Hull, all over. So it wasn't a big issue for me.
So what was the square footage of that space, and then what was the plan from then on in?
So that was 14,200 square foot. The plan was to do this kind of like chipboardy, edgy, trendy workspace idea. And very quickly we realized that there was a premium, not super, super premium, but like this kind of David Lloyd of workspace offering. So that's like kind of what we realized was the opportunity. And then off the back of, so we signed for that site in 2019. We started construction on that site at the end of February 2020, and we down tools 4 weeks later because of COVID.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And midway through COVID, so 2019, we were also engaging and putting a bid forward for the site in Stevenage, which is our flagship site to date. And so during COVID, we were like back and forth to Stevenage, looking at this building, trying to get a deal done. We then successfully got that deal. We launched Reading in April 2021. So we PC'd it effectively in November 2020, but we kind of sat on it over that period. And then we launched Stevenage in September 2021. We had a site in 2022 in Bath that fell over pretty last minute, which was a shame. That killed us for 2022 in terms of opening the site. And then we opened our Milton Keynes site in 2023.
What about, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to touch on, so obviously COVID happened and that completely changed the trajectory of working in workspaces in general, not just co-working spaces.
Yeah.
But did it actually propel co-working over your traditional workspace?
I think if you fast forward to now, it has. And I think there's this, like, everyone uses this best in class, and I hate those buzzwords, but there is this flight to quality. So what I think we found is that occupiers' needs have changed.
Yep.
I don't think flex suits every single occupier. I think managed maybe does, and I think some will still remain traditional. I think people are starting to realise that they can do 3 days in the office and 2 days at home, and businesses are taking a view on that. If you asked me this question a year ago, my answer would be different. Having an office company, I find it ironic that I think people are only going to come back 2-3 days a week.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to see that a lot of our members are mandating 4 or 5 days in the office.
So they're coming back more and more.
They're coming back more and more, and that's from the larger corporates. So there's a shift, there's a culture shift. The smaller businesses are still quite nimble and work with their employees and their team. They're trying to retain talent, so I think that's probably why. I think it was difficult, right? Because we raised an angel round in July 2020.
Yep.
Literally, after we realised that we needed more cash to get through COVID, basically, and more cash to do the site that we thought we were going to do Reading on 200 grand. It ended up costing us like 500 grand. So that was like the dynamic, right? Yeah. And that was the learning curve. And half the investors we met with said we were mad and that our model was dead. And the other half said, you guys are bang on the money and it's exactly where it was going to go to. And some of those ones that said it was dead now laugh. And some of those ones that say where it's going to go to laugh because they were right. So it was an interesting time. I don't think anyone really knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. And so the guys that, the investors are such that laughed at the model, who said that that's a dead idea? Like, what was their thought process behind that? Was it because of people? Was it because of the turmoil of workspaces at that time? So they just thought that's such a risky game.
Well, the office market had changed. I mean, you know, no one was going into offices, so they were viewing it as this is human nature at its core, right? If there's a thunderstorm tomorrow and the whole of this place gets decimated, then everyone just assumes it's always going to be like that. We as humans, we forget that stuff gets rebuilt. We forget that we move forward beyond these things.
Interesting, yeah.
We only see things from where we're at now. It's the same with like the cost of debt, right? You look at the cost of debt and you look at the base rate and you just think, oh, okay, it's this rate. It used to be that, but now it's this. At some point, it'll probably go down or probably go up or whatever. It fluctuates. There's always change that happens, but human nature is that we just accept how it is today and assume it will always be like that.
Interesting.
When it's good times, we expect it to remain, and when it's bad times, we expect it to remain. So those ones that were very bearish on our model were very much like, office is dead, people aren't coming back, people can work from home, businesses are now going to say to people work from home because now they don't have to have the real estate cost and it's going to save them tons of money, so your model's dead. And now those same people are saying people can't work from home, actually people don't have the spaces unless they're the owner of the company and have a big house, they've got a flat, they can't work in it, it's not functional. So it's like this shift, right? But you can't, I'm not mad at anybody for having a view. We all have a view because that's how we perceive the world around us. But it's quite interesting how our model really took off, especially end of 2021. 2021 was really good at the end. 2022, 2023 were really good years for us. 24 as well, but those years were accelerated.
And then what about, so how many spaces have you guys occupy now?
We've got 3.
Yep.
We're about to open our 4th in hopefully October in St. Albans.
So how...
You're the first podcast I said that on, by the way. Every other podcast I haven't been able to talk about it. Yeah. This is the first podcast where I had people...
I'm honest, my friend.
Yeah.
How do you... It might be a difficult one to answer, but how do you stand out in a busy crowd of co-working spaces? Because this is from an untrained perspective and somebody that, you know, like we've got an office and work on office and, you know, like we fit offices out. So I've got a little bit of an interest in there. But if you're on the, if you're not deep in it and you're on the surface level, you just think, because co-working spaces everywhere, everyone's got a bloody co-working space. There's the odd one down there, there's loads there and whatnot. So how would you stand out in such a busy market as such, or is it even a busy market? I don't know.
Well, what you just said is really interesting, and it's perception driven, because you see us as co-working.
Yep.
We're not co-working.
Okay.
In fact, I never call us co-working. We are 92% of our revenue comes from serviced office space. We are a serviced office space. Co-working is a small amount of what we do, but the industry is known as co-working. And WeWork is known as co-working, despite the fact that that probably amounted to 5% of their revenue. So it's interesting, the perception, and no one really knows what to call it, right? You know a gym is a gym, and you know a car dealership's a car dealership, but you don't know what the office subcategory should be. The same as if you go on to
interesting
Rightmove. I think it used to be called co-working. Now you can search for serviced office. They changed that because everyone was looking at co-working and thinking it's just one desk. So it's interesting.
For people listening, give us the difference between co-working and in service space.
Okay, so I see a lot of co-working spaces that are typically, and there's an amazing one around the corner for me in Richmond, and for the life of me I can't remember what it's called. It's called Drop-In, and it's basically open plan, a load of desks in there. You rent out a desk by the day, or you can go in and have one for a month, rolling monthly basis, whatever, and you work around loads of other people. And that is a core part of our business. Like, we have great co-working spaces in all of our centres. But the fundamental difference is we then have what our office space and different sized offices around the building with all the amenities that are accessible, like meeting rooms and kitchens and breakout spaces and stuff. And those things are the core things that people typically buy into. So they'll sign for an office for 24 months and they'll stay there for 12, 24 months or whatever. But it's interesting that the perception is co-working. We see ourselves as a serviced office space, and we see ourselves as like a facilitator of providing amenities to these requirements. We're like their operational arm in terms of we look after everything for you, and you just work in the space, and whatever you need, let us know, and we deal with it all for you.
Interesting.
That was a kind of round the houses.
No, you answered it well, to be fair, because it is known as co-working. Well, sorry, you
well, it is. You're right though.
Yeah.
And the amount, and I tell you what I love, right? And if there's any value to our business, it's a brand. So, and I won't bore you with the details of the brand and how it came about, but the amount of people I speak to where they're like, I work in a co-space near me. I'm like, you don't, but I love the fact that you think that, because now co-space is on your head.
Oh, so was that
So many people.
the concept behind the name CoSpace?
God, we had 20 names before CoSpace. We landed on CoSpace by coincidence, and I think it's been probably the strongest part of our entire brand.
Because people
Brand name.
say the name without actually talking about you guys, but just
Yeah.
talking about the holistically CoSpace.
Yeah.
Oh,
I work in a
interesting.
CoSpace near me, or, there's several CoSpaces. I was on the phone to somebody who's from South Africa, and they were like, oh, yeah, there's tons of CoSpaces in South Africa. I'm like, there ain't, but
There ain't.
yeah.
I've only got 3 or 4, but
Yeah,
it can
yeah.
be one of them.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's value in that,
Yeah.
the way that people perceive it. It's almost like the Hoover thing, right? I mean, Hoover is a brand. It's a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
But Hoover is synonymous with the brand. So people just assume...
Call it Hoover.
They call it Hoover, yeah.
Yeah, I call it Hoover.
Yeah,
I don't ever call it vacuum cleaner. I don't know.
exactly. But vacuum cleaner is what it is. Hoover is a brand.
I'm going to start calling co-working or service spaces CoSpace now.
CoSpaces, yeah. But you're right? And there is... I use the gym analogy. I mentioned gyms earlier. I always use the gym analogy, right? There is third space, which is super high end, and that's just super high end workspace, which we're not, at that level. And then there's your David Lloyd's, there's your Ballantyne's, there's your Anytime Fitness, there's your Pure Gym. All have different price points, all have different products, all catered to a market. There's a market for all these different options, and it's the same in real estate, right? Traditionally or historically, you had 4-star grade space, 5-star grade space, 3-star grade space. That's how it was always graded. And it's kind of similar as you look at it from a co-working and service sector, which is there's also these different banners, and a particular space that's a bit more edgy and trendy and cool in Bristol might cater to one market, and then the one that's in Richmond that's really, really high end caters to a totally different market. There's different people in different markets.
What's the plans with the CoSpace then? Because you've been running for what, 5-6 years? Roughly?
Well, yeah, I mean, we started 7 years ago.
Yep.
But we didn't launch our first site until 4 years ago.
Okay, so you've been going really 4 years. Well, 7, but 4 years.
I kind of say because of COVID, we're like a 4 or 5 year old business.
And obviously, you've done extremely well in 4 years with the space you got. But what's the
subjective? But
well, yeah, that's true.
Adam Neumann did better than me.
What's the plans with it? Like, where do you guys want to get to? Because you're obviously operating well. You must be if you're turning new spaces out.
Yeah.
So what's the plans? Like, where do you guys want to get to? How many spaces do you want? And do you think it will stay regional, or will you go into central?
I don't think we'll go into central. And I think the reason we won't go into central is because our USP is that we are London style working out of London. And there's so much opportunity in London for other players. Like, there's so much competition. You can go to a Huckletree, a Worklife, a Fora, a Tog, well, not Tog anymore, but, a Fora. You can go to all these different operators that all have something that's slightly unique about them. Uncommon have like trees growing out of their space to differentiate them.
Yeah.
So I think we would just die in that market. We don't have a strong enough brand, and I don't think we understand what we are to that market. We know what we are to the regional market. If you'd have asked us this 3 years ago, 5 years ago, when we wrote the business plan, our whole model was get to 20 sites and exit. That was our whole model. And we looked at that because I'm a real estate guy and Ali's a finance guy. And as we've gone down this journey, and me and Ali had this conversation with each other, it was quite a heartwarming conversation, which is like, we both, for the first time ever, really enjoy what we do. Like, really enjoy it. Like, generally I'm excited to wake up and go do this stuff. I have a really cool team. I get involved in things that I want to get involved in, and I don't get involved in things I don't want to get involved in. I can delegate stuff. And the more we go down this route, the whole business model that we started with was build an operating business that cash flows, get it to a set number, and then use that to buy assets. And if we could sit with 20 sites, 10 owned, 10 leased, that's a great ideal. And then we'll just sit on that for the rest of our lives.
Interesting.
And that's the model we're now moving down.
So to buy the premises rather than lease.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll, we're trying to sign our 5th site at the minute. I think probably our 6th site will end up being our first purchase. I don't think it will be our 5th. It'll be our 6th, maybe our 7th, and we'll move into that purchase model. But we also started a business in 2023 called Co-Ream, which is our real estate management business. So not only do we operate the asset, we can also manage it and deliver the service charge in the estate management and facilities management.
Interesting.
We have that arm as well. So the whole aim is own it, operate it, manage it. That's where we want to get to.
So how do you run both side by side, and just from a time perspective as well? Because
people,
yeah.
Everything's people.
And how difficult is it to get the right people in a business?
Hard.
Yeah.
Me and Ali had the idea for Co-Ream probably 2021. And it was born out of seeing service charges and going, there's a better way to run these. But we didn't have the appetite or the time to go and build that business. And then someone I know, Ricky, who runs the business day to day, I'd met him way before. He'd been helping us with some of our facilities stuff. And I literally took him to lunch and said, we have this idea for business. We don't have the appetite to build it. Do you? We'll cover a salary. We'll give you equity in the business. We'll split it, and we'll go build something really exciting together. So we did that. He owns a third. We own the other 2/3, and he runs it day to day. And me and Ali sit on the board. We do realistically half a day a week where we're actually with that business, actually helping to guide it and helping to grow it. And the rest of it, just leave it to itself. And it makes money. It's past break even, and just let it do its thing.
What's the plans with that one and going forward as well? So
2 plans.
okay.
Number 1, change the way that real estate management is done through transparency and better processes.
Go on into a bit more detail with that.
It's such an old school business.
Yep.
Right? If you have a building and your service charge year's ended, I've got a building at the minute where my service charge year's ended. Rick's best practice says that the reconciled budget should be issued within 4 months. I'm in month 6 and I still don't have the budget. And I'm like, why? I can go onto Yardi and I can see exactly what our expenditure is. I can see what our forecast expenditure is. And I can see every single cost that is either floating or fixed. And what we want to do is create something that allows every tenant and every asset owner to see all that information. And so part of it is a bit of a technology play in what we're trying to do. But the second piece is just doing it by doing better practices. And that's what's kind of core for us, to go and build that business off that basis. Now, once you hit, say, that 10 to 25 million turnover range, and on that you probably have 2 to 10 million EBITDA, something like that, you then get into this range where actually that becomes an exciting acquisition opportunity. And at that point, we'll figure out whether we want to do that or not. We have this thing, which is we love what we do and we'll carry on what we do, and we have no ambition to sell it. But the day we either of us wake up and no longer enjoy it is probably the time it's to sell.
To exit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Something I want to touch on as well. So obviously you guys build out some, reasonably big site spaces as such. How do you find working with contractors?
We're different. So you mentioned it earlier, actually, which is D&B.
Yeah.
We're not D&B, or we don't consider ourselves D&B. The closest we get to D&B is we'll put it under a JCT D&B.
Right.
And the reason for that is we want the contractor to take design responsibility. We typically design it to stage 3 plus in-house.
Yeah.
On one scheme, we did stage 4. I think that's too robust. I think the contractor needs to have a little bit of wiggle room to say, we're going to go inspect the airflow rates of HVAC systems and things like that. So I think it's too robust. But stage 3 plus is really good enough for us to go, we know exactly what we're going out to tender for, down to every single item. Is it a compliant bid? Is it MITSI? Is it 12.8 mil laminate glass? Like, is it exactly our product spec? If it is, great, there's the cost. And then when we appoint the contractor, our design team work with them through to the stages 5, 6 and beyond.
So you do have you have an overview then?
Yeah. We're detail and build, basically.
Right, okay. But you
semi-trad, but not trad in the sense that we'd issue it as IFC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But in terms of just like working with contractors as well, like how do you find it nowadays? Because you've worked with contractors for 10 plus years, I suppose, from your real estate, from your commercials and resi days. So like, how have you found the change in working with contractors over the last 10 years?
It's all about the contractor you're working with, like, and it's all about people. Everything is people, right? So can you get on with them? Do they understand what you're trying to achieve? Are they the kind of person that, and this is absolutely critical for me, right? If you have a problem, one of the guys I work with, I know if there's a problem, he's already got 3 solutions. And he'll say to me, here's the 3 solutions. This is the one that I think we should do, and here's why. And sometimes, right, and it's rare, but sometimes I'll go, you know what, that's wrong. Here's why it's wrong, because actually there's this bit over here that you can't see, and we'll talk about it and figure out what the right solution is. Or 99% of the time, bang on, go do that. And so I like people that are like that. I've worked with people before that just love to talk about problems. They'll sit and talk about problems. One of the things, so I mentioned earlier on at the start of this conversation about a guy, Nick, who I worked for at MTAG. We used to do a morning meeting from 9 o'clock where we'd all sit down in a room with the guys out in the factory floor and everybody, and we'd talk about everything that was happening for the day and the manufacturing and stuff. And those meetings dragged on. And I read in a book that if you have standing meetings instead, they're so much quicker.
Which book was that? I'm sure that rings a bell to me.
I want to say Productivity Ninja, which is a book I always quote, but I can't tell you exactly. God, this was 2014, 2015.
What's that?
But I literally read in this book that standing meetings are so much quicker and more efficient. And then next week, I implemented standing meetings, and those meetings were done in 10 minutes.
Were they?
Yeah.
So much.
We're getting 20 minutes a day.
The meetings just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have a meeting for sake of having a meeting, some people. So pointless. But linking back to what you said about contractors, people who just want to discuss problems. We've got some guys who work for us who literally, I could tell you the exact conversation if I saw the phone ringing, right? It would be, he'd ring us up and be like, there's a bit of an issue down here. So X, Y, and Z, this doesn't fit with this. We haven't thought about that. That's in the way. And I say, okay, what would you do? What's the best solution to the problem? Probably X, Y, and Z. Okay, why don't you do that? Yeah, okay, I will do that. I
Yeah.
have it all the time.
Yeah.
I just find it's always like they use me as a sounding board to ring.
Well, it is that. Sometimes people know the answer.
Yeah.
They just want someone else to agree with them and
Yeah,
say it.
yeah.
And I actually don't have a problem with that.
No.
Because sometimes people only see it. We live life through our own perspective, right? We only ever see life through our own perspective. So when we get that secondary perspective, sometimes it's like, okay, don't do that. Here's why. Do that. I have it with my guys. I always say to them, I would rather you make a decision and it's wrong than you not make a decision at all. Because if it's wrong, we'll figure out why it's wrong and
Yeah.
we'll put a process in place so it's never wrong again.
Mm.
But it's better that you just make the decision and then we'll figure it out afterwards within reason. Like, don't burn anything down. But a lot of the time, people just want to say, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think that's the right answer? And then you'll be like, yeah, it's fine. What I hate is the flip side of that conversation that you have when they don't have the solution.
Yeah.
And they're like, what should we do? And you're like, well, what am I paying you for?
Mate, we get that all the time. People, but they usually ring. They usually ring with the solution anyway. But they're like you said, they just want the yeah, okay, that's cool, or yeah, crack on with that. That's that. But I always do it like, what would you like? I don't say this, but in my head I'm thinking you're the expert.
Yeah.
You know what the solution is to this. What would you do if you the shoe was on the other foot? What would you tell me to do? And they say, I'm like, okay, that's definitely yeah, that's the best idea, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, crack on,
Yeah.
crack on with it.
There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of, and that's I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is shell and core. Like we
Yeah.
don't do Cat A products. So when you're doing shell and core, you're basically starting from scratch. There's very little to find. If you're doing a bit of strip out, then there's risk. You know, you might see that the electrac shot, or you might find there's asbestos, which is the worst, or
Yeah.
something like that. But you know, it's pretty low risk in what we're doing. What I've generally found is when there is like risk items, that's when stuff starts to run away and people don't think about it in the right way. A lot of stuff we do is pretty straightforward.
Where do you see what people demand from an office space as we are now is drastically different to what they demanded before, and what they're used to now is just it's almost like a home away from home and such, going to an office. Where do you see that getting to in 5, 10, 15 years time? Like, what do you think people are going to want from the space they're working from?
So I love this question, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think anyone knows the answer. And I think people will tell you an answer, but don't actually know the answer. And I'll give you my answer.
Yeah.
But my answer is subjective to where I think it's going to get right. Because in 3 years' time, we could all be in the metaverse and offices don't matter.
Very true.
But you
Very
don't
true.
know. But what we're generally seeing as a business, people are amenity led. We're seeing this in housing as well as in office space, right? The most successful developers are putting in amenity space. They're putting in golf sims, they're putting in F1 sims, they're putting in lounge areas, all this kind of things. Everybody wants community. So a key thing for us is building a space where we can have an option for community, but not force it. You can try and force community and it doesn't work. But if we create a space where people can meet or can not crash, but, bump into each other and, oh, they're sat on there and I overheard the conversation, let's have a chat, that kind of thing, then that's wonderful. I think there's going to be this flight to this, and I hate to say best in class. So there's going to be, over the next 5 years, everyone's going to go for those grade A buildings, those better buildings. Office space is now becoming almost like an employee benefit, where people are not taking jobs based on what the working culture is. Because why would you want to commute to a basement office with carpet tile, brown carpet tile and suspended ceiling, when you could go and work at an edgy, trendy company for a little bit less money, but much better life that you're there? Yeah, it's 8 hours of your day. It's a huge amount of your life that you actually spend in the office if you're commuting to an office. I personally think that there's a good mix between a day or 2 days at home, probably a day. I get a lot done on my Fridays or my Mondays when I'm at home, but I also need the days in the office. I need to be with the team. I need to have communication. I can't get the same things out over a Teams or a Zoom call. When I'm on Teams and Zoom calls, it's easy for me to get distracted by my phone. And because I'm on a call, I'm like, oh, I can just pull it up and respond. When I'm in person, you feel rude doing that, so you don't do it. So I think you're more engaged at the office.
Definitely. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but I spoke again numerous times on this podcast that I'm so much more of an in-person collaborator and worker. I feed off energy and of having people around me and communicating and being with people. And I find that you lose so much emotion behind a conversation, and the way that you communicate your point and you communicate it to your team. I feel like you lose so much emotion behind that over Teams and over Zoom. I feel like it could get misconstrued. People might misinterpret, sorry, what you're saying. And I spoke, I think it was with Ben again, I keep bringing up, it was with Ben again earlier when we spoke, and it's almost like when you have a conversation with someone in person, like you can explain your point of view and you can bring the emotion behind the conversation, and their perception of what you're saying might get warped by how you're delivering it. But if you're over Teams or Zoom, their perception of what you're saying is only they're only going to be able to perceive what you're saying based off their own perception. You can't warp that because you've lost the emotion behind the conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just gone in a complete roundabout way.
You're exactly right. And also it's like, when I'm in the office, right? So next to me is my head of finance, and I can turn to her and ask her a question. And I'll be like, "Oh, I was looking through the P&L. I noticed this. Can we have a little chat about this?" And we have like a 5-minute chat, and it's agreed. If I don't do that, I'm at home. I've got to type out the email, or I've got to call her. And when I call her, she's probably busy in something else because I haven't seen that she's like free between the stuff she's doing. Hence why I've turned to her. And then I have to like sit down, try and articulate an email of what I'm trying to say, then wait for her to respond when it's something that I could have just turned and had a 5-minute conversation about. So I feel like you lose these efficiencies as well, as much as people think it's efficient. The negative to that is the whole commute, and it completely depends where you are. Like I know people that have taken jobs for less money that are way less commute.
Really?
Yeah. So it just completely depends on what your living style is.
Also, as well, I think if you're sometimes it's a difficult one really, because sometimes collaboration is key, and I'm only speaking from the perspective of my industry because like we're in a massively agile industry that's changing all the time, and when you're delivering projects you need so much more input from the office, so you need people with you who you can talk about a project, and if there's a little issue, what would you do, how would you do this? But then again, you can lose productivity because there's people in the office and everyone's trying to collaborate on things. You can just get interfered so much that you might be focusing on something, but someone's maybe asked you something, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, actually, I'll tell you what, I can help you with that. Do you know what I do? Hang on, let me pull it up a minute, go on your laptop. And so like you can lose productivity as well as gaining productivity from being in it.
So the biggest one that I always see, right, and you're going to love this because you're going to be exactly the same, is design reviews. How do you do a design review online? Because you need to see it. You need to physically touch it. You need to feel that carpet or feel that material and be like, this is the one. This is the one I'm connected with. I feel the warmth or whatever it is. And that sounds wishy-washy, but it's true, right?
True.
And how do you do that online?
You can't. I don't think
people have different screens, so they look at a colour online and go, they see a different colour to what I see. It happens all the time.
I don't think you can. I really don't. And also, I know I'm probably regurgitating, but I think you just need to be around people and just like 100%. Feed off other people's opinions, because they might
learning as well.
Exactly that. I'm more team working in the office if I had to pick one side. Although there's a place for remote working and whatnot. I mean, there's a huge place for it. I mean, I've been able to connect with people through the podcasting is such, like my editor's in Mumbai. Like if there was no remote work and no way to communicate and collaborate with him, I wouldn't have this editor who can edit this podcast for me. I'd have to find someone local, and
so that's the other thing. Sorry to jump in. That's the other thing that I really like about the world we live in today. The talent pool is open.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. No longer do you hire within 20 miles of wherever your office is. You can hire anywhere in the world. Anywhere. I have an assistant and she's not based in the UK, and it's a game changer.
Really?
It's a game changer.
Interesting. A lot of people get VA. Is it VA or is it?
Well, she's not. She's an executive assistant, but she's based out in the Philippines. She works the same hours as us, so she doesn't work different hours. Whereas a lot of VAs will work their hours, so you send stuff and then by the next morning it's there. She works our hours, which is like means she works late, but that's part of the role, and she's happy to do that. But it's just an absolute game changer because she's so smart, so talented.
Completely changed the game for employing people and freelancing people as well. It's incredible. I use them for the podcast. A couple of people on a freelance basis who aren't in the UK, in fact. And then they're so talented as well. So talented.
So you're gonna like this as well then. So one of the best £300 I ever spent, and I didn't spend it actually. It was Ali that engaged him, but we spent it as a business. Was for a guy called Hugo, who was at Sheffield Uni, and we found him on, I think it was Upwork, but it wasn't Fiverr, it was maybe Upwork. And we basically said, right, we need a list of 100 locations that we are going to hit, filtered by the top 30 locations. And here's the criteria: has to be in the UK, Has to be a major tier 2 location. Can't be a tier 3, so it can't be secondary market. It's got to be a tier 2 location. Not one of the big 6. Has to be an area that has high affluence, so a high level of C-suite roles, a high level of above national average salaries. It's got to be commutable within other locations. So if it's like a Harrogate to a York, it's commutable to other major locations. And he went away, and a week later he came back with a list, and there was 30 locations. 29 had David Lloyd gyms, and 1 didn't, which is St Albans.
Really?
And I just went, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? Someone else has already done all this. They've done all this work. David Lloyd know exactly who they go after, know exactly what their price point is, know exactly who their market is. It's the same market as us. Why am I reinventing the wheel?
Interesting.
And it changed our game.
Did it?
Yeah.
So you started to utilize their
I just go where there's a David Lloyd.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because I know that my product is of the same level, it's premium, and it goes there. Now, Regis can't follow that model. In fact, they probably could, but Regis can't follow that model because they're not at that same level. Regis are probably looking at like a Pure Gym or an Anytime Fitness and going, well, where are they? That's where our market is. So I think it's about finding markets that represent your brand. Another one that I really like, and they've come under a lot of fire recently, Lululemon.
Yeah.
I just love the Lululemon concept, the brand, everything that they stand for as a business.
Yep.
Not so much him. The guy is a little bit crazy. He's an Adam Neumann character.
Mental.
But yeah. But I just they care about quality. They care about experience within their stores. We use the exact same sentence system they use. We got the sentence system from them.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
So what's so special about their experience as such in store? From your perception, obviously.
I know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try and articulate it in the right way. From the minute you walk in, the first thing that hits you is the smell, and you're already brought in, right? And it's the same as like when you walk into a new home and they bake cookies. They bake cookies for a reason because they want to toy with your emotions. So it becomes sensory.
Yeah.
The way it's laid out, it's literally 1 small, 1 medium, 1 large, and it's clean, and it's just simplistic. It's not 10 sizes and you've got
too much going on.
Yeah, and if the small goes, they put another small out. Like it's minimalist, but at the same time, enough range. It's really well thought out in the way that you flow through the store. The staff are there to help you, but it's not like a pouncy when someone comes up and they're like, can I help you? And you're just like, here's 10 quid to never talk to me again. Like it's not like that. Then when you go to the till, they're like really friendly, and the way they talk to you and just things like, there's all these different things, right? And if you get the right people in the right position, they nailed customer service. Because at the point you're at the till, you're already going to buy. The customer service doesn't really matter as much at that point, but they still carry it through right to the end because they understand how they do anything is how they do it all.
What sprung to my mind there is I've listened to a Steve Jobs book probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the level of detail that he put into everything to do with Apple, but specifically to do with the unboxing of an iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they did that they tracked data on the exact moment that our endorphins are released when we lift up the box, because when you obviously, have you got an iPhone or have you Android?
I'm an iPhone.
You're an iPhone.
Yeah.
So you know when you lift the box off,
Yeah.
it's like it's got like this like
It's air
suction.
sealed.
It's amazing. You like lift it off,
Yeah.
and I think they tested the exact time that the most human endorphins are released,
Yeah.
and he implemented that into the unboxing process of an iPhone. I was amazed when I heard him.
So I read the Walter Isaacson book, and I think that's probably the one you're talking about. And their psychology is incredible because it extends more than just the technology. And if you've seen, so there's 2 Steve Jobs movies. There's the one with Michael Fassbender, which is a really great movie, but the best one in my view is the one with Ashton Kutcher. And they have this amazing scene where he's going back to Apple, and he asks people, he said, "Why are you here?" And he said, the guy's like answers the question. He's like, "No, why are you here? This isn't a company I built. It's not what I stand for." And he says, "We all hope to do what you stood for once again." He said, "Well, what did I stand for?" And the quote was, "You believed that every piece of technology, whether it's a phone, whether it's an iPod, whether it's a Apple Mac, should be an extension of that person, and it should just be as simple and clean and easy to use." And I was like, that is an interesting perspective. I was with someone yesterday. I won't name who, just because they probably don't want me to mention it. But they are building some software that we're using. And one of the questions was, do they do training on it? And someone said to him, "Do you do training on WhatsApp?" And they said, "No." He says, "So make the system so simple to use that it's like WhatsApp. You just figure it out." And I was like, that's a genius way to look at software.
That's almost like what he did with Apple products as such. I mean, he made it so minimalist and made it
But people hated that.
Yeah.
The amount of people pushed back and said, open it up,
Yeah.
make it so that other things can connect to it and stuff. And he was just fully closed, and it's paid off.
Must be so difficult to stick to your guns like that. I mean, his book was incredible.
Yeah.
It really was. Like it actually kind of like it slightly warped my mindset in terms of like how he's so hell bent on minimalism. But not only that is whether it was obviously good because he did so well, but like the perfection element behind it, he was such a perfectionist, and also he was a ruthless bastard as well.
And also like the other piece, he understood marketing. It's the reason why if you look at the two fathers of electricity, right? You've got Nikola Tesla and you've got Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
Right? Thomas Edison was a marketing guy. It's why Elon Musk like loves him so much. But Tesla was a smart guy and understood the technology. So Tesla was smart on the technology, but Edison was better at a marketer. And what you typically find is people that understand the marketing and how to sell a product. One of my favorite Apple campaigns, and everyone thinks it would be the sledgehammer through the wall thing. It's not that. It was the green, blue, red silhouette with the white earphones.
Okay, yeah.
And for years, people saw white earphones and knew they were Apple earphones. Apple owned the white earphone market. Everyone else had different colors and JBLs and pink and all that stuff. It was like literally a status symbol to have the white wired headphones from a iPod.
I'm pretty sure that people with an Apple wanted it to be black, didn't they? And it was Steve Jobs who wanted it to be white.
Is that right?
Maybe.
That wouldn't surprise me, you know.
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Because it's cleaner.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't think, but it is. Yeah.
I think it was his idea to have it as white rather than black. He's an incredible, but I listened to his
so he's at the table.
Oh, does he make your table?
He makes my table, yeah.
He might. Yeah. That might have influenced me as well. I feel like he could make my table.
I need a bigger table.
We need more people.
It's like that Last Supper scene where he says, I want a table for 12, but we're all going to sit on the same side, so give me a table for 24.
Love it. Will, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for having me.
Thanks for coming on SQFT-Stories, mate. It's been a real interesting episode to chat everything around. I was going to say co-working them, but I can't say that because that's not that's only 5%. But mate, it's been great to hear your perspective behind it and your industry that you're in as well. So thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Will.